Terra's Story, Chapter 35. Terra walked into her apartment with her mind still churning, but quickly felt something different. She hesitated, trying to figure out what had changed. The refrigerator! I can hear the motor humming. She quickly flipped one of the light switches, and there was light. The power is back. She ran to turn on a faucet. After some spitting and rumbling of pipes, a stream of grayish-looking water ran into the sink. She ran into the bathroom and turned on both taps. Once the pipes cleared of air pockets, water streamed into the tub, splashing into what was left from the beginning of the nightmare. Longing for more than the sponge baths of the last few days, Terra checked the temperature of the water, her hopes rising. Yes, goddess bless a gas water heater! Terra felt like a new woman as she strode into the station. The station seemed to have returned to life too, bustling with energy. She'd missed the morning meeting, so she headed straight for Cap's office. Sure enough, he was in a huddle with Joni and Brian around the coffee table strewn with papers. They all looked up, not nearly as refreshed as she was. "What's up?" she ventured. "Anything new, besides the power being back on? Oh my gosh, I was so happy to have electricity and water again. Cap?" She stopped at the drawn expression on Cap's face. Something else has happened. She felt it now, like a bowling ball careening down the lane directly at her. "Well, Terra, we've finished with the list of suspects Handy gave us, just not in the way we'd have preferred." Cap scrubbed his hands across his face and leaned back in his chair. Terra stared, especially after a quick glance at the other two showed them slightly green. "What do you mean?" she whispered, sinking into the other armchair. "I mean that every place we checked for damage to the grid, we found a body, or a collection of body parts." Terra stared, not comprehending. Joni spoke up. "We know now who everyone on the list was." She flipped a page and glanced at her notes. Doc was Marion Manning, Ph.D., Chief of Programming at Mugbook. She was on a CIA watch list since her MIT days because of her relationship with some Iraqi insurgents recruiting students for the Taliban. They could never prove anything against her, and she'd fallen off their radar. She was known as a brilliant coder, but she'd gone quiet for a few years. We identified her because the fingerprints matched. She looked up as she flipped a page and continued. Bucky was Jasper Weinberg, so called because he was apparently too poor as a boy for orthodontic treatment. He was the night supervisor at the water purification plant. Joni flipped another page. Mac was Randolph Mackenzie, maintenance supervisor at the power plant. She threw the pad down. These others, they worked in one capacity or another at the power plant or the water plant or were computer geeks. One worked on algorithms at Mugbook, in charge of buggering the system. We're not sure yet if all the bugs have been disarmed, but right now, the software seems to be working normally. This ransomware appears to be similar to the stuff that took out the Colonial Pipeline system. Cost them $5 million to get back online. Guess the perps decided that was too cheap, but I don't think anyone died in that situation. Colonial never gave details about how the ransom was paid. Bloomberg broke the story on that one. She paused and Brian took over the explanations. Seems like losing $12 million in ransom money made someone really angry. These weren't just executions, Terra. These bodies looked like they'd been torn apart by a pack of hungry hyenas. Prasorida, eyes gouged, throats ripped out, limbs torn off. Terra reached for the photographs, but Brian snatched them away. "You really don't want to see these, Terra. We barely saved Joni from needing therapy." Joni shuddered, her face pale. Brian continued, "These are things you can't unsee, the stuff of nightmares. Cap and I were meeting with Shauna in an hour to see if she can do some EMDR and some tapping to clear this out of our heads." Joni jerked her head in agreement. "The glimpse I got before Brian grabbed it away, Terra, these are worse than the dead angels." Terra blanched. Worse than the dead angels? Terra shivered, her mind rebelling at the thought. "Okay, thanks, guys." All the lightness Terra had felt was now buried beneath a suffocating sense of dread. "Cap, what about all of you who were made to collect the drops? Does Shauna have any idea how that was done? What if Marius isn't done trying to get the money back? What if?" She stopped at the expression on Cap's face. "Yeah, Kano." He blew out a heavy breath. "What if? Except you know this thing is not going to stop. We just don't know how and when it's going to strike next. The gaze he lifted to hers was baleful. I'm not going to get any peace or rest until this thing is done, and I don't know what done means either. Terra's heart ached for him, and ached even more at the possibility of losing him. Have you said anything to Christine? Of course, he mumbled as he ran his hands through his hair. She made me promise from the beginning that I would tell her any time we face a possibility like this. Good, Joni burst out. She's a smart lady and you're stronger with her by your side, Cap. I know, he admitted, smiling. She's the power part of our duo. I just show up and look pretty. His admission was rewarded with several giggles. So we have to keep an eye on all you Pinocchios, Brian ventured, trying to keep things light. And we have to hand-pick who's going to be guarding you and where we're going to stash you. We need people to guard who won't fold with this kind of multi-dimensional crazy. Joni spoke up. I checked with the Beaumont Arms, Cap, and their penthouse suite is available. I spoke with Adele Beaumont herself and she volunteered it. Said she owes you big. She didn't elaborate further. She raised an inquisitive brow, which Cap waved aside. But she said they can bring in rollaway beds to supplement the bedrooms for sleeping arrangements and room service will handle meals. I'm liking this plan, Cap, and I think Christine could coordinate everything, which would keep her close to you for both your comfort, and besides, as executive assistant to the mayor, she's a top-notch administrator who knows him really well, too. She'll be one of the first to notice anything odd. Do you think she can handle the paranormal aspects we're dealing with here? Cap snorted. You mean the woman who built a fairy village around the creek in our woods? The one who goes out there on full moon nights and doesn't come to bed until moonset? He paused, thinking. I don't know that Chris has ever faced this kind of evil, but those children's books she writes in her off time have dragons and sorcerers and stuff. He looked up. I'll ask her. Yeah, do that, Terra encouraged. Then she stood. And ask her to help us contact the rest of you, Pinocchios. We'd better get you all sequestered at the Beaumont Arms as soon as possible, maybe even send squad cars for transport. Once we get you physically safe, we need to huddle about how to protect you from this madness and what to do about the rest of that $12 million. Don't worry about Jameson. I pulled him into the loop before you got here, Terra. He was Air Force Special Operations, and he's got Matthews and a couple others driving him, plus he's called the remote viewing unit to see what they can contribute. You mean the psychic spying unit? Didn't the government announce that they discontinued that unit? Brian inquired, looking confused. That's what they announced, Cap confirmed, stopping and pointedly staring at Brian, who grinned as he registered the unspoken message loud and clear. Plus a couple from a shadow agency. You don't know anything about this, remember? That has advanced, energy weapons that were reverse engineered from something out at Area 51. That will be a big help, Terra confirmed. So there's going to be quite a crowd in that penthouse. You 12 plus Christine and us adds 4. Do you know how many? No. Right. Well, we'll prepare for 2-0 and adjust as needed. Who? Get ready, folks. I feel the next hit coming and we need to be as ready as possible. There were sighs and groans as they gathered up the files, but also fresh energy inspired by a new sense of urgency.